sponsored by the IP Institute at the University of Richmond. We've usually done it in Richmond, but time to change things up and try the Big Apple here. So let me turn things over to Professor Petrovian.
Oh, great.
Introduce the
The speakers, the Evil Twins. I won't tell you that. So ninth annual Evil Twin debate. We usually do this at the University of Richmond, but we're doing it here to accommodate the speakers, but quite frankly, get a different crowd, right? Kind of change things up a little bit. When I arrived at the University of Richmond and Jim said, I have this idea for an Evil Twin debate, I said, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and I was wrong, actually. I think it's a lot of fun, and I hope you all will have fun with us. The debate series is founded on the notion that experts are often at loggerheads on important issues of IP policy, yet they remain friendly. Right? And they can air their disagreements kind of in a friendly tone, right? But also serious in substance. And so today we're going to debate the topic protecting APIs, copyright, or copy wrong. As we will hear in more detail momentarily, recent disputes like Oracle versus Google have brought up the question of the propriety of copyright protection, and so we'll hear more about that from our two speakers. There are going to be some more detailed introductions in just a second. I have Pam Samuelson from Berkeley and Randy Picker from Chicago Law School. Pam's going to get 15 minutes initially to set up the issue and present her arguments. Randy will get 18 minutes, and then Pam will have 3 minutes for rebuttal, and then we'll open up for question and answer. But now for, I don't want to say the most important part, and this is a tradition for Evil Twins debates, we have each twin write the other's bio. So, in just a second, Pam is going to introduce Randy. Well, no, actually, Randy's going to introduce Pam, and then Pam will introduce Randy, and then we'll get going. So I'm going to turn this over to Randy.
Okay, do I really need that? We'll see. Can people hear me? Yes, people can hear me. So thank you so much for having us here. Really appreciate the invitation. I love the idea behind this. I think it's a great idea. So I'm a big believer in short introductions. I think that's what Google is for. Right? And I can't imagine that there is anyone in the room who doesn't know who Pam Samuelson is or what she's done. Should there be such a person, today is your lucky day, because Pam is well-regarded with a good reason. And you're lucky to have a chance to hear her. Now, the only part of this introduction I wanted to get right, it's good when people donate money that they get recognized for that. So let's get this part right. Pam is the Richard Sherman Distinguished Professor of Law at Berkeley. That's amazing to me. When I looked at that, I had no idea that Richard Sherman, who, as you all know, is the Seattle Seahawks cornerback. That's the Richard Sherman I know best. That he really cares about legal education that much. That's more depth than I would have imagined for him. Pam, as you also know, there's the Samuelson Clinic at Berkeley. And then Pam is one of the driving forces behind the Authors Alliance. So Pam is a distinguished scholar, but also a participant in these fields in a meaningful way. She is a certified genius, as you know. That means that she is an early MacArthur Award winner. We can talk about the various flavors of the MacArthur Awards and have an extended discussion of that. But she got one of the really good ones. Wow. So impressive there. I want to talk a little bit about the evil twin conception. Let there be no doubt in the room. She is the good twin. I am the evil twin. There's no doubt about that. That she is good, that I am evil, that she is the hero, and I am, alas, the villain. And I accept that. That's the role I've been assigned in this debate, and I can live with that. And I've seen enough, I have 3 kids, I've seen enough Disney movies to know how that works out in the end. So Pam will triumph, I will lose. That was what was going to happen here anyhow. Pam is, as you know, we can talk about her general accomplishments in copyright. in the field of computer software and copyright. She really is at the, she sort of defined the field and continues to create it. We have a voting in Chicago on voting day. We say vote early and often. That's what she's done. She got here early and she is here often. So my role here is pretty simple. As the MPAA puts it in its ratings for kids' movies, my job here is not to win the debate. My job is to create mild peril, right? I am supposed to put the hero at risk, just a little bit, so that she can reveal her goodness in the face of adversity. So the good can triumph over evil.
So glad you already confessed to it. But I'll start out by observing that there's either a lack of imagination or something not quite right. If you have been thrice a graduate of the University of Chicago and you teach there now too.
That's a lack of imagination, I agree.
Just it strikes me as something possibly at least unusual, and so we're finding out. So he is the James Berger Hall Distinguished Service Professor at Ludwig and Hilda Wolf Teaching Scholar, and bravo for that. Person. But isn't it downright demonic that he can teach so many courses and hold so many positions at one time? So in addition to teaching IP, he teaches antitrust, network industries, secure transaction, bankruptcy, corporate reorganizations, and I could barely keep up with copyright. And so I think that there must be some demon in him somewhere that he can do all of this. And he serves as an Akuzo commissioner, a reporter for the National Bankruptcy Conference's project on bankruptcy reform, and a senior fellow at the Computation Institute of the University of Chicago's Argonne National Lab. It's like, how do you do that? Okay, I feel like I'm actually a pretty energetic person, but he is more. And I think that it must be immoral that on top of that, he has the energy to teach 10,000 students in a Coursera MOOC, and even though only 260 actually finished the
We are up to 340. Please.
He's also devilishly adept with new technologies, not just with MOOCs, but with Google Hangouts, Twitter, and who knows what else. He actually tweets about being still my heart when he learns that Microsoft is about to add 2 new features to PowerPoint, and he's willing to go down in rabbit holes in Microsoft Word, which is, I have to say, something I will not do. So that's my introduction of my evil twin. So everyone here knows that the conventional thing that copyright does is protect the original expression in works of authorship from market-destructive exploitations, and the conventional role of patents has been to protect novel and non-obvious functional designs. If you try to apply those principles to computer software, you end up in a pretty deep hole. And I think one thing that Randy and I actually agree on is that the fit between copyright and computer programs isn't exactly that great. But here we have a subject matter, computer programs, the most functional aspect of which is the literal code, which Congress has assigned copyright, not patent law, to protect. And more abstract elements of programs are sometimes patented, but after the Alice versus Cialis Bank case, it's not really clear how much of software design, even if functional, is available for patenting. And the question has been swirling around for a long time, what's the relationship between copyright and patent in relation to computer programs. And I think Randy and I have both been attracted to the idea that, oh, let's assign copyright to this and let's assign patent to that. The deeper you look into it, however, the worse the rabbit hole gets on that particular score. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So the parts that are easy is to say that software protects source and object code and video game, audio visuals, and other kind of expressive elements of programs. That part's easy. But when we talk about what are often called non-literal elements of programs, such as the structure, sequence, and organization of programs, or a subset of that, which is application program interfaces, I think we get into a very, very difficult part of copyright law to address. And the question about what did Congress mean to do when it adopted Section 102B of the copyright statute, which excludes not just ideas, but also processes, procedures, systems, and methods of operation. It added that provision to the statute in order to ensure that the scope of copyright protection in programs wouldn't be too broad. But the question about what those words of exclusion mean has been bedeviling the copyright law ever since that law was passed. So the Oracle v. Google case is just the latest instance of that. And I want to spend a couple of minutes on that before turning specifically to interoperability more and APIs more generally. So the district court in that case held that the command structure of the 37 Java API packages and the 6,000 roughly method headers or declarations that are specifications for functionality were an unprotectable system or method of operation under Section 102B. And as long as Google re-implemented those functional elements in independently written code, there should be no infringement. Google used the API method headers to enable some interoperability with Java apps, and the Ninth Circuit precedents actually really supported that APIs are unprotectable elements in software, although there are different interpretations about what the doctrinal hook is for that. The judge also thought that that API was, these API elements were more like patent subject matter than copyright subject matter, and noted that actually both Sun and Oracle had gotten patents on certain aspects of Java API design, and so that, but they didn't have patents on the parts that actually were alleged to be infringed. But it sounded like it might be patent subject matter. The court used merger of idea and expression as an alternative ground because the rules of the Java language require that you use exactly the same name for the method headers in order to invoke specific functions. Now, the Federal Circuit, in a decision which shall go down in infamy, more evil by a lot, reversed and said that Section 102B is only about the exclusion of abstract ideas, and since a Java API is not an abstract idea, it's particularized, then it gets to be protected. Also, as long as it's original, that Sun engineers had some creative choices open to them initially, that's enough to make it copyrightable. And the court rejected out of hand the notion that there's any compatibility exception to copyrightability of APIs. And I think one of the kind of core things that was error in that decision is the Federal Circuit didn't understand the difference between an API and software. It's actually a pretty fundamental distinction in the computing field. An API is a specification for how information is exchanged between programs, and implementing code is quite a different thing. What Judge Alsop meant to say was that the elements of Java that Google re-implemented in code were not within the scope of protection of the Java API specification document from which those specifications were taken. The Federal Circuit also says that that programs and program designs are not uncopyrightable just because they're patentable too, seeming to conflate patent and copyright subject matter. I want to just focus on the interoperability issues because the rationale that the Federal Circuit used in the Oracle case essentially calls into question and undermines decades of rulings by other courts on interoperability issues. And in the course of trying to really understand what's at stake here, I've actually identified 6 different types of interoperability cases that have been decided. So sometimes that's about competing applications need to use the same API so both can interoperate with the same operating system programs. Sometimes unlicensed application developers need to use an API to make their program interoperate with a popular platform, as in the Sega Accolade case. Emulation programs sometimes need to use an API in order to enable applications developed for the plaintiff's platform to run on their system. In the Lotus v. Borland case, the command hierarchy functioned as an API that enabled this competing company, Borland, to enable user macros to be executed. So there was a compatibility element to that. The Bateman versus Mnemonics case involves the reuse of the API necessary to re-implement operating system functionality because Mnemonics had actually developed an application program. Bateman withdrew his license for the operating system, and so in order to be able to use your own application, you had to re-implement the functionality of the operating system. So that's actually 6 different types of interoperability, and all of those cases, actually the courts have said on one basis or another that those APIs were unprotectable by copyright. And it's not the case that interoperability defenses are always successful. In the Apple v. Franklin case, and here's a place where we actually agree, Franklin copied the Apple programs bit for bit, and if there's anything that's copyright infringement, it's that. They didn't even try to re-implement the functionality in independently written code. The Atari Games versus Nintendo case was one in which the Federal Circuit held that the Atari Games had copied more than was necessary to achieve compatibility. But even the Federal Circuit, in this earlier case, said that if it had been necessary to use what they took in order to achieve compatibility, that would be an example of process expression merger. And so even the more recent Federal Circuit decision is inconsistent with prior precedents. What we have in the Oracle v. Google case, I think, is a more complicated claim. It's a much more complicated claim, and I'm not going to go into it right now, but I'm happy to talk about it in the Q&A if you want. But one question that it raises is a question about human interoperability, right? If you have 9 million Java programmers in the world who have learned to program in Java and consistent with the rules of Java using certain method headers to invoke certain functionality, does the fact that 9 million people have learned that and have written programs themselves, right, independently written, where they've made investments in creating their own application programs, should they be forced to learn a different dialect of Java in order to program for the Android platform? That's one of the real fundamental questions that I think the case provides. Now, before I yield the floor, why should we want copyright protection not to extend to APIs? I think I have at least a few reasons to offer. One is that it's been a long-standing distinction in the computing field between APIs, which people are free to use as long as they are publicly accessible, and implementations of the API in independently written code, which you're not supposed to copy unless you get permission or its open source. And I think what you have in the Computer Associates, the Alpine, and some of the other cases is really a recognition of, in law, a legal norm that actually is an implementation, I think, of the fair competition norms in the software industry that predate all of these cases that we are talking about. Secondly, the software industry has thrived for decades, and I think in no small part because Altai and other cases have treated APIs as unprotectable elements of programs as a matter of copyright law. Three, it's actually a fairly straightforward thing, right? If an API is necessary for interoperability, that's the simplest rule that we have in the software copyright area. Everything else is completely murky, but that's actually one that the courts can apply and can understand, and it seems to me that makes it a good rule too. Fourth, there is a history of past abuse of monopolistic control over APIs by IBM and Microsoft. That has led to antitrust challenges, both in the United States and in the European Union. The EU has, I think, an even stronger position about abuse of dominant position for manipulating what people can do with APIs. I think that not protecting APIs promotes beneficial standardization and avoids inefficiency of needless variations. You have to go out and create your own ecosystem. You can't ever participate in anybody else's. And there are third-party effects. Right? If you think about all the Java programmers who already had developed programs in Java and wanted some of those to be able to run on the Android platform, or wanted to easily be able to adapt them, that's a third-party impact, really, of saying that Oracle owns the API and no one else can use it without their permission. I think the courts are right that APIs are functional requirements for achieving compatibility among programs, I think that's actually quite consistent with, much consistent with traditional principles of copyright law as we can ask for, and the duration of copyright protection for APIs. If copyright extends to them, I think it's just too long and too strong. Thank you.
Okay, but I'll take that. Thank you. Put this here. Put this here. Maybe. Yeah, do that. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, good. So Pam was nice enough to point out that I am a bit of a PowerPoint person. I shouldn't admit that in public. And we're not doing PowerPoint today. So in lieu of that, I have a one-page handout. You'll look at it. I thought one page was about the right size to go. And let me have one copy of that. And when you look at that, you'll want to look at the text, and then you'll want to flip it over to the back.
Evil twin, do I get one too?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he's evil.
No,
That's right. No. This is some peril, actually, right?
I did email it to Pam ahead of time, just so we're clear. It is not worthy of good to suggest otherwise. Okay. The back looks like something that would be in MoMA or near MoMA, so that's what I'm hoping for here. All right. Let me try to tell you what I want to say. The bumper sticker version of what I want to say, I think, is straightforward. Lotus loses. I think Lotus should lose. Sega loses. Sega should win. When Pam and I had a conversation originally to see whether we would disagree, a debate requires some sort of disagreement, we knew we would be methodologically different. I am, as she said, from Chicago. We see the world differently than the rest of you guys. That's part of our evilness. So I understood that. But my immediate reaction to her was to say, oh, this is just Lotus again. And Oracle should lose. And then the honest thing to say is the more I've thought about it, my evilness, I guess, the more I've said, no, this is closer to Sega than I realized. And maybe Oracle should win. So that's the path we're going to go down. So where I start on this is, and Pam talks a lot about interoperability. That's actually, I think, developed super nicely in the paper from the original draft to this draft. Good for you. Sometimes people write stuff and it's sort of locked in, and this draft has evolved really nicely. I really applaud that. What I want to focus on is this idea of what I'm calling here sort of design complements versus unanticipated complements or switching cost complements. What does that mean? So the game console economics, and now we're in the world of two-sided markets, we're in the world of two-part products. When Microsoft is selling the Xbox originally, they're losing $150 a copy. They are selling that at a loss because they're investing in creating this platform on which copyright activity will take place. They need to create this installed base, and the best way to do that is to subsidize that. Now, Microsoft is not a charity, right? They need to figure out a way to make money, and the way you organize economics in these kind of platforms is you lose money on the platform, and then you license access to the platform to game developers. That's the structure of that. So that's how you're making your money. But to do that, if people can simply gain access to it for free, then they don't need to buy the license, and all of a sudden that business model breaks down. I don't know what the right way to sell games is. I don't know what the right way to organize competition in that market is. But I think it's a plausible idea, but that's a sensible approach, and that sensible IP law will facilitate that. Now, I will say that I regard that as an access question. Who has access to the platform? Access looms large in my mind, and I think, to sound like, an academic, I think copyright and access are sort of orthogonal, right? That copyright deals a lot with use and doesn't focus so much on access conditions. I focus on access conditions a lot. I've got work in the public domain where I talk about that, but I think that comes up here. So I don't think I don't think when Sega puts in place some sort of hidden code to gain access to the platform, that they are doing something there which is importantly expressive, right? If they made the developers say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, I wouldn't think that's an important act of copyright, really. It's just a lock and key. It's a fancy lock and key. That's all it is. So I don't think that's important for expression. I don't think it's also going to be captured in the patent system. But I think allowing them to control that kind of access is probably socially useful. Certainly socially useful to allow that type of competition to take place. And I don't think the Sega court understood any of that. So I don't think you see that. They simply regard this kind of entry and access to the platform as an unalloyed good. And they don't recognize the fact that as soon as you've got these two-part products and you've got this subsidization taking place with regard to the creation of the speaking platform, then you need to have these controls. And I think we as copyright people should be completely comfortable with those controls, because this is the structure in which we're going to enable. I have 3 kids. I've been exposed to a lot of this speech in my house. We have an Xbox, we have a Wii. This is rich copyright expressive work that we want to see facilitated. So I think that's important. Now, that's one piece of that. So I regard that as interoperability, access, where a sensible copyright policy is going to make it possible for Sega to control that. And as I say, I think the Ninth Circuit gets that wrong. Borland's on the other side for me. And I talk a lot about Southco as well. Pam talks a little bit about Southco. And the reason I want to talk about both Borland and Southco is to emphasize that this discussion is not just a software discussion. So Borland, as you know, I regard Borland as one of the, along with Pam, one of the heroes of this system, I guess. What do I mean by that? Borland wants to compete with this dominant company, Lotus 123, that had a market capitalization at one point that exceeded Microsoft's. And they build what they think is a better product. But because of the collateral investment that is made by users, they face this kind of entry barrier that Lotus didn't face. How do they deal with that? Well, they could simply copy the Lotus interface. But they built their own interface. So they incur, if you care about this kind of thing, they're not just free riding, they incur the costs as well. Now, The difference for me between Sega and Lotus Borland is, Lotus wasn't running a multi-part strategy. Lotus wasn't giving away something so that it could sell something else. Lotus was selling 1, 2, 3 for full price. They were capturing all the economic value they needed to do through that product, and they didn't have this collateral set of things they were selling to try to capture value. That's what distinguishes Borland for me and Lotus for me for Sega. And so in the one case, the Sega case, I see the access controls as legitimate. The Borland case, I see them as illegitimate. And again, let's hope that sensible copyright policy, either through the fluidity of 102B or through the fluidity of fair use, will make us possible to draw those lines. Okay? What I regard as legitimate restrictions on interoperability versus illegitimate restrictions on interoperability. I mentioned the South Co case. So South Co, as you know, is about the important copyright issues posed by the market for lawnmower repair parts. Right. What? How did we get there? Well, you know how we got there. We get there because, again, this is a system where there are connections between multiple markets, right? These aftermarket issues, we see those in my other world, antitrust, all the time. People want to try to control aftermarkets, and the question is whether law is going to allow them to do that. Now, you could be the hardcore Chicago person, and even I'm not that anymore, where the hardcore Chicago person would say, oh, look, this is fine, let them control it. People, when they buy their mower, will say, you know, 6 years from now, I'm going to need to buy a repair part. And I should take that into account in the price of the mower. Yeah, I guess you could believe that world exists. Even I don't really believe that world exists. And so if you don't think so then you would want to say it's illegitimate to allow Toro to effectively leverage these parts numbers to effectively control the aftermarket of these parts. You don't want to allow them to control that ecosystem that way, nor do you want to induce them to actually create genuinely expressive part numbers, right? Where they write a poem for each part number, right? That is not the path we want to go down, since I don't know where we want to get our poetry, but I'm pretty sure it's not from the Toro Parts Department. Okay, so you see how all of that works, I hope. So where does that take me? It takes me, I guess, to, where am I doing? I'm good on time? Okay. So let's take that down then to some ideas that I think are more directly within copyright. I've been talking a lot of economics, so I think I've sort of done the first 2 bullet points here, right? I want to say access and functionality are quite different things. So there is nothing that is going on in Google Oracle where Oracle is effectively trying to block Google from functionality. Google can write whatever software it wants to write. Oracle is not trying to claim something in the copyright system that they really should have taken to the patent system if they want to have that kind of blocking right. They're not doing anything like that at all. What they are doing is saying, we want to control access to our ecosystem. And so I think the question, the hard question, the interesting question, my question, Pam's question is when they should be allowed to do that and when they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Now, let's take that to some copyright documents. So Pam's got a lot of discussion in the paper on merger. Merger, I gotta say, has never done anything for me. What do I mean by that? So let's take the 2 cases where it shows up most originally here in computer software. That's, I take it, Wayland and Altai. And basically what happens in each of those situations, these are pre-PC cases, so I sort of love these cases. What happens in each of these cases is we've got initial software. I guess these are, at least one of them's in the dental business. Are they both in the dental business? At least one's in the dental business. Not that that matters.
Actually, it does.
Actually, it does. Okay. But the point of this is that to the extent that the requirements of the predecessor to the IBM PC is going to push a programmer down a particular path, they are going to do that through independent creation. Right? If it turns out that the right way to write this particular sorting function is one way, someone who independently creates it will be able to do that. We do not need a separate merger idea to protect them. We simply say, go off into your clean room, develop the software, you can independently bring it in, and you won't have any problems.
So we've got a mechanism for protecting efficiency-related developments, and we don't need to do that through some version of the merger doctrine. What you might think the merger doctrine would do, but the cases never talk in these terms, is to say, this is the best way to learn about this issue. You need to go through the program to do that. That's why you should be able to look to the program rather than going down some sort of clean room process. We can have that discussion, but that is not the merger discussion that shows up in the cases. It's just never that sophisticated. It's why this is the best place to learn about these particular programming techniques. So I think in Wayland and Altai, we could allow the second movers, thank you, we could allow the second movers to independently create the software. If they duplicate the software, that's just great. That's what independent creation is for. That's where we should see that operating meaningfully. And so there aren't meaningful interoperability issues there. On copyright versus patent, I agree completely with Pam that we don't want people to be able to control functionality through the copyright system. We want to push them into the patent system. Obviously, software patents are interesting and controversial. I've been looking at that history and how that ties to IBM's decision to vertically integrate in mainframe computers. That's a different talk, a really interesting talk, but not today. So I agree with you completely on that. But I want to distinguish the idea, as I said before, of access versus functionality. What's going on here is about controlling access and not controlling functionality. All right, I've got 5 minutes, so let's talk about Google and Oracle proper. Here's what I think is really complicated about this. So as I said, when I started this, I assumed that Java was basically equivalent to Lotus 1, 2, 3. I've been reading some Sun history. That doesn't seem right. Java, you know, they're sort of just looking for an interesting internal project originally. This is what they come up with. And then they look for a way to monetize it. As you know, the history of Java is in some sense entwined with the fight for supremacy in computers with Microsoft. Java was part of the middleware layer with Navigator in fighting with the Windows monopoly. Part of McNeely's vision of the network as computer. They clearly see it as a platform that they want to protect and have appropriate licenses for doing that, right? And so the way in which subsequent users have to feed new content into the Java ecosystem is an important part of that design. Eventually they have to figure out how to monetize it, and they have these collateral things, some in software, some in hardware, where they're doing that. There is little doubt, I think, that Google wants to disrupt that. And the disruption that's taking place is the world of the desktop is moving into mobile. That poses challenges for both of the pre-existing ecosystems. Google's desktop search ecosystem, Java's ecosystem, and part of what we have to grapple with here is this question of how sort of intergenerational competition should work in platforms. And I don't think I really fully know what to say about that yet, but that's clearly part of what's going on here. But when Google sits down, Google/Android, Andy Rubin sits down to license Java, and we have this extended discussion, Google clearly wants to be able to fragment Java, and partially wants to do that because part of what they want to be able to offer to the carriers is the ability to create their own idiosyncratic versions of Android. And the reason they want to be able to do that is they think that will give them a competitive advantage in selling Android. And to do that, they need to be outside the GPL licenses. You see how complicated how all that is, right? So there are many moving parts there. When you sit down and look about how Oracle would frame damages in the case, and the case, as you know, is currently back in the district court, where I guess we're going to litigate fair use and damages, and there's a lot of stuff floating around. How to think about how they would have sold the power or the right to fragment. It's going to be very hard to figure out how to price that. But there's little doubt that in creating Java, Sun was thinking about this as a design complementary ecosystem platform situation from the get-go.
For me, that's very much like Sega. I think it's important to be able to validate that. I have 1 minute, so I'll pause. What I'm supposed to do at this point, of course, is, as you know, the traditional thing you do as an evil person is you monologue for a while, right? You have the person on the railroad tracks, and you could just kill the hero, and you never do, and you sort of go off and sing your praises for a while, and the hero gets away. You know, I think this is a hard case, but maybe Oracle should win.
So what intellectual property law would do about software protection, APIs, the distinctions that you draw between access and functionality, different kinds of complements, one product and two products, might be completely different than the question that I think is before the courts in the software copyright cases, which is the API in fact original expression of ideas? And I think the answer to that is no. An API is basically a specification for functionality, and the courts have been really consistent about saying that and not drawing the kind of distinctions, even when some of the cases have made an effort to do it. I think an API simply is a functional design element of a program, and to me it's a lot more like the layout of circuits in an engineering drawing of the semiconductor chips, which are like also about the flow of information through a system. But we have no problem at all basically saying that copyright protects the drawing as a drawing, but not the layout of the circuits that embody the functionality. This is actually a place where merger of function and expression, I think, has always been recognized in that part of the world. So we agree it's good on Lotus v. Borland and on Southco. The Whalen v. Jaslow case is a case in which Whalen should win on what Jaslow did, which is to copy exactly the program that he had commissioned her to develop. And then separately, he re-implemented the functionality in a separate competing program. He ran a dental lab. What they were doing is automating his dental laboratory procedures. She didn't know anything about dental labs or dental lab functionality at the time that she started doing this. And the file structures that were the basis of the infringement ruling on the second program were file structures that probably were unprotectable by copyright law because they were efficient design elements. And the 5 subroutines, which like end of day closing, end of month closing, the flow of those things are unprotectable business processes. So to me, the Whalen versus Jaslow case, whatever else is going on there, is an example of something where it's an independent implementation of that functionality. Now the Altai case, I don't get why you don't like that case, because here you have Altai did do a black box reverse engineering to extract information and make a program that competed with Computer Associates in scheduling programs for IBM systems. The Sega v. Accolade case, obviously, in some sense, is interesting for you to focus on as the wrong outcome, given that Sega actually wasn't claiming copyright protection in the interface. They actually had a more grand notion, which is that you can't ever make a copy of a computer program in order to extract unprotectable elements in it. And that the Ninth Circuit actually saw as sort of an effort to monopolize not just the expression, but also the functionality and the unprotectable information. And you didn't talk about the Duluth case, but what would you do with add-on software? As I hear you say, nobody gets to interfere with other people's ecosystems. You have to make your own ecosystem. But do we really want that as a society? Reverse engineering is hard, it's difficult, it's expensive, and you're probably not going to be able to make things as compatible as if you license it. So
So we have a little bit of time for questions. So does anyone have any questions for our good twin or our evil twin? Yeah, here we go, Ted.
So, I'm going to take this. So I have a question for Randy. So it sounds like a lot of the debate is between sort of the proxies we have in copyright for economically sensible protection, and on the flip side, economic arguments in these situations where the proxies are a bit gray or unclear. The better analysis maybe be an unfair competition law, which has more flexibility to handle these odd sorts of situations, for example, platforms and so forth that don't fit copyright or patent so well.
Yes. You want me to take this? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So I'll say whether it's better or not, I don't know, right? So I teach a class some years called Network Industries, and there's no field like that, right? And it's the same thing here. We don't have a field of platform law, and yet we know that a large part of the economic life that we live on each day that's exactly what it is. And so, lawyers are doing exactly what you would expect them to do. I think of lawyers as institutional engineers. That's what I tell my students they should think of them. They work with the toolkit we give them. And so, I don't know that copyright is a bad match in the sense that fair use is, what is, protean, is that the word we use? I don't know what that word means. I think that means we can do whatever we want with it, right? But, okay, I mean, usually we're critical of that. I see the virtues in that, I guess, here, right? So I think Judge Boudin does that basically in his concurring opinion in Lotus. And I applaud that. And I think most people think the judges have gotten better and more sophisticated in using fair use over the last 20 years. You want to talk about all that?
Well, so fair use is, as you say, a protean doctrine, but I have to say that none of the cases has dealt with interoperability, compatibility issues as such in the fair use context. And so one of the things that I'm worried about as this case now goes back to trial is that, yes, it's true that the Sega v. Accolade case was a fair use case, but it wasn't fair use about the use of the interface. It was a fair use about reverse engineering the code in order to extract unprotectable elements. And the notion that you can't read the text of a publicly disseminated work simply because it was distributed initially in object code only was a pretty strong position, and for a while it looked like it was going to prevail. But what is fair competition is something that we don't usually ask copyright law to do in terms of product market. So most of these cases actually, so the Sony PlayStation game platform, for example, is like, Sony wants the protection from copyright that's essentially going to be copyright protection for not just the software but the hardware elements, right? That's where the expense is. In terms of they have to subsidize, okay? It's like, it's the hardware that they're subsidizing, not the software. And so you sort of say, what is copyright law doing here? Basically extending protection to printers, printer cartridges, and with the Internet of Things, everything is software enabled. So we'll never own anything, we'll never be able to reverse engineer anything. That just strikes me as the wrong kind of world to live in. And so copyright just doesn't give us very good answers to this. So as some of you know, I was promoted the sui generis approach to protecting software, and I think a constructive conversation could take place about that. I'm not sure I'd go exactly in the same places that Randy would, but I think we could have a constructive conversation about it within that kind of framework. It's just that I'm really solid that copyright should not be just twisted all over the place. We talk about nose of wax. It shouldn't be twisted all over the place simply because you want certain outcomes and you think that Microsoft should be able to control a certain kind of platform. You know, nobody's going to be writing games for that platform that are going to be fully compatible, that are going to be as desirable and are able to enter easily. That's why people want to license the interface and license the use. And so it seems to me that, you know, something like Accolade's Mike Ditka football game is not exactly going to be the sort of big hit on the platform, and I just don't see it undermining the ability of the company to basically control and make money.
Any other questions? Oh, great. So I'm having a bit of a hard time understanding your chart on the back of
What a
the thing.
surprise. Let the lesson be that in PowerPoint this would have come up in pieces. Yes.
But I think I understand, I don't agree, but I think I understand why you think Sega and Oracle are different from Lotus.
Okay.
What I don't understand, the one case in this chart that I don't understand is why you think Altai came out wrong.
Yeah, so I got to go back and think about what Altai said, I guess. So, what happens to Altai? So
scheduling programs run on the same IBM operating system.
yeah, I'll have to go back and look, to be perfectly honest. So I just don't, I did reach that conclusion. It must be right. It says so. You'll send me an email and I'll email back. And we'll decide whether I'm right or wrong. That's an unacceptable answer, but the best I can do right now.
Any other questions? Oh, there we go. Susan?
A former evil twin.
Yes,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Susan was your evil twin.
No, Mark.
Oh, Mark was your evil twin.
The other Mark. So this is for Randy as well.
Everyone loves evil. This is the lesson. Go ahead.
So my question is both, I think, a follow-up to Pam's comment about whether copyright law should be the forum through which we protect certain business models. So you seem to think, although I hear you being more agnostic than agnostic in places and stronger in other places, you seem to think that this is a legitimate and defensible business model that the law ought to support.
Yeah.
And I guess one question is, how do we decide that empirically, and how do we, this is one of the challenges that I have with Judge Medin's opinion, which I otherwise find very appealing.
Yeah.
How do you decide, right, when a use ought to be a privileged use or not? So that's one question,
Yeah.
which is related, I think, to my other question, which is a doctrinal one. So how would a court doctrinally accommodate your concerns? And I think, you know, my more general point is just, is copyright law the right vehicle for achieving the commercial objectives that you're talking about?
Okay.
So on the how to decide question, I will reveal myself to be not only evil, but an economist as well. Maybe those go together. So yes, exactly. We can have a vote on that. So I'm a huge believer in models, right? I mean, I want to sit down and understand what I think makes sense, right? And the idea that in two-sided markets that we think it may be useful to cross-subsidize across the sides of the market, I think is unbelievably well established. And so that is something that we see.
In lawnmower markets.
I'm sorry?
In lawnmower markets.
I don't know in that one, right? So, but I thought your conceptual question was, do I think those markets exist? And for me, the answer to that is yes. And I guess I find the analytical apparatus incredibly useful for persuading me that those exist, and then I think I can map those to real-world situations. I mean, I take it we think Google is exactly that kind of two-sided market, and one that we all benefit from every day. So I think that's the answer to that. The question is, how do you operationalize that in real cases, right? So, we know how we do these things. We bring in experts and they testify, right? So the question of the consequences of fragmentation to the Java platform is going to be part of the discussion in the lower court. I mean, you see that in the briefs. As best I can tell, the actual expert reports for Oracle are not public. But when Oracle talks about them in their briefs, they're clearly talking about that. And so, now maybe you say, I don't believe in experts. I don't know that I do either. But I'll say that's the mechanism we seem to think works in American civil procedure. Talk about that or not? Yes, no? I turn it back to you.
Thank you so much to both Pam and Randy. Our evil twins, they need their own evil twin notepad, and they need something to remember this by, right? Everybody needs an evil twin desktop paperweight picture, right? Part of this. So thank you so much. And then the other thing, hey, I might as well, right? It's very good. The other thing is, this is housekeeping, is that we have a shindig to go to, if you'd like, at Faces and Names. Is that right? It's right by the Sheridan. What's the street, Sheridan?
It's on 54th Street. So when you go out the front door of the hotel, you turn left, and you turn left at the very first corner, and it's on that block. It's actually on the opposite side of the street. It's right on that block.
Try that again.
Faces and Names, 54th Street between 6th and 7th.
Great. Thank you so much.
Woo.